Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology and leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading and notebooks and writing, mixed in with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. You can expect regular weekly episodes focused on 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme and how to bring those themes to life in our actual lives too. You can also expect author interviews, notebooking inspiration, and topics to help us grow through what we go through and take inspired action to make our lives better. So grab a notebook and your TBR list and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your friendly bookologist, always here to recommend books. But today, I think I need to call myself a notebookologist because today we are talking all about notebooking. So let me start with a question for you. What kind of notebooker are you? What kind of journaler are you? In my experience, there are 4 main types of journaling or notebooking that people tend to lean into. We might have productive notebookers. These are the notebookers who love bullet journals, who use their notebook to organize their life and their to-do lists, and who likely have a couple of different agendas too. The second kind of writing that I see, and I tend to fall into this category, is reflective notebooking. These are the notebookers and journalers who like to write about their life. This might be a morning page notebook, a regular old notebook where you just work through self-care and self-love prompts. It's basically a notebook to figure things out on the page. Now, you might be a creative writer. You love tinkering with the written word. You have dreams of writing a picture book or a fiction novel, or maybe just essays or poems or musings on life that are more creative than just describing your day. This kind of writing is always a little bit harder for me, and I admire people where creative writing comes so easily to them. But then the 4th category of writing is archival. These are the kinds of journalers and notebookers who are journaling and notebooking to hold on to memories. So these kinds of notebookers love their travel journal. They love their traveling notebook. They love their memory planner, right? Using their agenda to hold on to things from the day. There are so many different kinds of notebooking that can describe you. And the trick is finding 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 ways that really work for the kind of writer you want to be. But that's what kind of notebooker you are. Today, I want to talk about how you notebook. So how do you notebook? What are your instant notebook preferences that come to mind? For me, I love a notebook that's a little bit smaller than your typical 8.5 by 11. I love an A5 size. I like lightly lined paper. I used to be a blank page kind of notebooker, but now I want lightly lined pages. I always write with a mechanical pencil lately, especially when I'm doing my morning pages or reflective writing because it just glides so freely across the page. I usually do have a simple table of contents in the front so that I can find the writing that I want to remember when I want to remember it. And I am a sticky note person. I have sticky notes as placeholders. I have sticky notes as dividers. And sometimes I just jot some extra thoughts on those sticky notes and I'll post them throughout the pages. How we journal is unique and personal to us. And as you know, I've been trying to grow my writing life in different ways to get out of my writing comfort zones and push those boundaries. I've joined multiple writing groups. I've attempted to learn new forms of journaling. By the way, you can junk journal with me in just a couple of days. And I've been using printables. You know I love Christy Zimmer. I'll talk about her in a little bit. And I've been using these printables and prompts to push my writing in new directions. But today I'm talking to you about one writing technique that I had never heard of that I'm experimenting with now. You ready for what it is? They are journal tip-ins. Yes, that's what I said. Tip-ins. T-I-P-I-N-S. Journal tip-ins. So, what in the world is a tip-in? Well, according to Archer and Olive, who is a wonderful notebook company, a tip-in is a piece of paper or a cardstock that's attached to your journal along one edge only so that it can be tipped over. So literally a tip-in, a piece of paper or a card that you tape in to a page of your journal just on one edge so that it can tip open like you were opening a little card or a little door to your page. They're often used in bullet journaling and they're often used in junk journaling. And I'm really leaning into giving them a try. Why? Well, I think they're functional and they're beautiful. So for me, I am definitely a functional kind of writer. If you were to browse through my notebook pages, you would primarily see lots and lots and lots of writing. You wouldn't see many stickers. You wouldn't see much washi tape. You wouldn't see watercolors or some sort of artistic element to them. You would just primarily see writing. And that's okay. But for me, I'm starting to want a little bit more. I want a little bit more to look at. I want it to be more of an experience. I want to really be wowed when I open the pages, not just by my words, but by what I see. Now, these tip-ins can be used in any kind of journal. So if you're a productive writer, a reflective writer, a creative writer, or an archival writer, it all works for you. You can use tip-ins in your bullet journals, your morning pages, your junk journal, your traveler's journal, your gratitude journal, whatever kind of journal you have and you lean into, you can try tip-ins. And today we're going to talk about the why, and then we'll talk about the how. So why might we need a tip-in? Why might we need an extra piece of paper taped into our notebook so that we could flip it over? Well, you might need extra space, first and foremost, right? Have you ever ran out of pages of your favorite journal, but you just needed one more thing to write? Well, you could tape a page on the end. Or maybe you have something to add to a journal entry that you did previously, and you need to insert a page, and it's not a disc notebook. So you could cut a piece of paper and you could tuck it in and then tip it open. So tip-ins can be larger pages that match the size of your notebook to literally give you extra space, but they don't have to be. And in fact, most tip-ins are not the size of your notebook. They're smaller, they're fun, they're artistic, right? So they might be the size of a sticky note. They could be the size of a bookmark. They could be whatever size you need them to be. And they could be blank so that you have extra pages to insert. But they also could be printables. These could be removable trackers like habit trackers to remind you to write. They could be writing tools and prompts like words you don't want to overuse in your creative writing, or prompts for the month of August to get you writing about our Get Literate Patreon community nature theme, right? They can be anything. You can tip in photographs, mementos, ephemera. You can tip in beautiful pieces of paper just for decoration. You can tip in cards that have beautiful quotes written on them, whether you made them yourself or you purchased them to just add a layer of surprise and delight on the page. You can also use them more creatively and layer in not just information, but layer in media for your junk journaling, which, by the way, Jen Begin was here just not too long ago talking about joyful junk journaling, and she'll be junk journaling with us inside of our Patreon community next week. So if that's something you want to give a try, join us. You can find out more at getliterate.co. But these tip-ins can be anything you want them to be. They can help give you extra space. they can add in particular tools, or they can just make things pretty, right? And when we turn something from a routine, like writing, into a ritual, which is something that encompasses all of our senses, then we're more apt to come back to our notebook. But there's one last thing a tip-in can do. It can hide things. So if there's something pretty personal on the page, you probably likely already hide your notebook or keep it secret somehow. But when there's something really private on that page, some journalers tip in a piece of paper to cover up a particular section of their notebook and to just keep it a bit more private. Now, does it mean it's actually more private? No, someone's going to take your notebook and open it. They're probably going to open your tip-in too, but it just gives you a symbol that something feels safe. So many different ways that you can use a tip-in, an extra piece of paper of any size, blank or with content on it, to make your writing life better. That's it. So now that we have an idea of what tip-ins are and what we might use them for, and hopefully you have a visual in your mind of what these might be, let's talk about how we actually go about creating a tip-in and putting it in our notebook. There's really 3 steps, at least in my experimentation in my own notebooks. The first step is to simply get your tip-in supplies. Now, this means that you'll need scraps of paper or paper squares or cardstock, or maybe you're going to print out some writing tools. Maybe you're going to print out some prompts. Maybe you're going to print out some reminders, some writing affirmations, whatever you want it to be. You're going to gather your tip-ins. Then you're going to grab some washi tape. Now, could you grab regular tape? Sure. You could make it so it looks like the tip-in is seamless on the page. But I love marking the tip-ins. I think that the tip-ins signal something important. And so I want to see that tip-in jump off the page, right? I want to see how pretty that washi tape looks. So you can grab some regular old tape, but I recommend that you grab washi tape so that this really does look like a beautiful addition to your notebook. And then you need scissors, right? You need scissors to either cut down the size of your tip-in or at least just to cut the washi tape to fit the edge of your tip-in. And that's it. That's all the supplies you need. What you want to tip in, the tape and the scissors. Then you have to decide what kind of tip-in you want or need, because that will determine the material you use for it. So for example, if you just simply need another page of your notebook, well, then your tip-in is going to be pretty simple. You're going to get a blank piece of paper, whether it's lined or dot grid or blank, and you're going to insert it where you need an extra page and tape it in. And we'll talk about how in a minute. If you just need a little tiny extra section, right? You just had one more sentence to add. Maybe you just have a small piece of paper that you tape to the bottom corner. If it's not extra space that you need, and instead you want reminders of writing tools, well, then you need to get that writing tool. So that tool could be a tracker, right? It could be a habit tracker that you want to put in the front of your notebook. And then every time you write, you tip it out so that you can see how many times you've written and it can motivate you for that current session. Or you might have a list of writing prompts. I love to write predictable responses. Well, no, that's not true. I like to write responses to predictable prompts. So every morning that I'm in my morning pages notebook, I typically start with the same kinds of prompts. Now, for now, I've memorized them, but I thought it would be nice to have a tip-in where I could flip it out and it would stick out of the side of my notebook, and it would have those 3 prompts that I always start with. Again, it makes it a ritual. Sit down, find that beautiful tip-in, open it up, there are your questions, and get to writing. So any kind of writing tool could be a tip-in, a tracker, a prompt, some sort of template, writing reminders, whatever you like to inspire your writing life and to keep it on track, that can be a tip-in. Those may be things you create yourself or you find them online. And I'll request later some tip-ins you might want because I've been having fun on Canva trying to make a few of my own. Now, what if you want inspiration and artistic elements to your notebook? Well, that's a completely different kind of tip-in. That's where you can get fun cardstock from the scrapbooking section of your local craft store. Maybe you even tip in some fabric swatches. Maybe you tip in some quote cards or just beautiful inspirational quotes, inspirational images that you've seen. Maybe you tip in photographs of your own life, things that you love and want to hold on to, and you want to tip in that photograph so that when you're writing and reading about that section, you've got that beautiful picture reminder. And then finally, if you want a little bit of secrecy to give yourself that extra layer of protection in your notebook, then you would pick tip-ins that are not opaque, not transparent, and that are very dense so that they could cover something up. Maybe that's a square shape. Maybe it's a rectangle shape. Maybe it's a triangle shape. Who knows, right? Only you know what kind of writing you want to cover up, but it can be fun to play around with those shapes to literally cover up your writing. And when you're ready to read it, to use that tip in and to flip it out. So there are so many different possibilities for tip-ins, but it all depends on the kind of notebooker you are and the kind of tool that would be helpful to you. Now, once you're there, once you're ready, you've got your stuff, you've got your purpose for your tip-in, and you know which materials you're going to use, it's time to just tape it in, right? And this is a little bit different than how you would normally tape something in your notebook. So for me, I would just slap down a Post-it note. Or in the past, if I had something I wanted to tape in, I would just take that object face side up. So I'm looking at what's on the paper, and I'd set it on my notebook and I would tape it down. But that's not how you do a tip-in. The joy of a tip-in is that you open it up so the information is on the inside. So when it's closed, it's blank. It's a blank sheet of paper, or it's a beautifully designed piece of paper, or whatever it is. The magic comes when you flip open that door, you flip open that tip-in, and you see what's inside. So it's not just putting your tip-in down and taping it, it's flipping it over. So it's face side down wherever you want it to be. And then you take your washi tape and you tape just the edge. Now, which edge is up to you? I am probably a rule follower, and so I will probably tape the left side of my tip-in so that it opens as a book would open. But that doesn't mean you have to. You can tape the right side so that it flips out the other way. You could tape the top so you could lift it up, or you could take the bottom so that you could pull it down. Whatever works for you and how your brain sees fit to tape it down works. Or maybe you just shake it up a bit too and you change them up. That's the most simplistic way to do a tip-in. Now you can get fancier and you can fold the edge of your tip-in down and then tape that edge down so that the fold is there and it kind of pops up. But I prefer taping the edge so that it stays down and it stays secure in my notebook. Now the question though is, where do I tape it? Do I tape it at the top, at the bottom, on the side? Well, there's a couple of different places. One of the places that is pretty common for a tip-in is the front cover of your notebook, that first inner page. So if you're like me and you like having writing tools available, or you like having writing prompts available, this is a great strategy for you. If you were to open my Morning Pages notebook, you would find pieces of paper tucked in the pages. Well, maybe you won't now because I'm going to turn them into a tip-in, but you used to find pieces of paper folded into the pages that had the prompts that I liked listed on them. So I would just kind of fan the pages, find my prompts, open them up, set them on the table, and I would write, but not anymore. Now I turn those prompts into a tip-in, and I taped that tip-in onto the inner cover of my notebook. So now when it's time to write, I go to my inner cover, and I open up that door of the tip-in, and now my tip-in sticks out on the left side of my notebook so that I can turn to the page that I'm ready to write at, and my notebook prompts are there no matter what page I'm on. That's the beauty of the tip in. It literally folds out so that you can see it at all times in your notebook wherever you wanted it. That's what I've mainly been exploring. But you also could do the same to the back cover. So if you want a tip in that is always available to you on any page because you like the writing tools you have or you like the writing inspiration that you need, then taping your tip ins to the inner and back cover is probably best for you. Now, if you need more space, if you're using your tip in because you needed an extra page, because you needed an extra session, because you wanted to add a particular quote or a picture or image or artistic element to a certain page, well, then your tip-ins, obviously, are going to go on specific pages. That means they might not be available to you when you're writing on other pages, but that's okay. It just adds value to that page. And where you put your tip in depends on how accessible it is. If you put your tip in right in the middle of a notebook page, well, then you'll only see it on that page. But if you put your tip in to the top and the left, when you open it up, then that tip in might stick out over the edge of your notebook, and then you could see it as a reference for other pages. And here's the thing. Here's the wonderful hack about tip ins. They're movable. Washi tape can be removable. Plain old wrapping paper tape can be removable. Might be harder than others depending on your brand, but these tip-ins can be moved if you so desire them to be. So that's kind of the general idea of a tip-in. It's a piece of paper or a card that is literally taped and attached to your journal along an edge so that it can be tipped over and used in some way. It can be used in a functional way, or it can be used in an artistic way. So let me get personal now. Let me share with you the 3 ways I've been experimenting in my notebook with tip-ins. First, though, I want to remind you of the kind of notebooks I have. So if you go all the way back to episode 37, I share with you my 2023 notebook stack. The stack of notebooks that I write in either daily, weekly, or monthly throughout the year. So to give you a little recap, I have my professional notebook where I take notes about work. I have a podcast planner and notebook. I have my morning pages notebook, my gratitude journal, my 5-year journal, my book journal, my book quote journal, and my on-the-go journal, my little journal that fits into my purse. I know, it's a lot of journals and a lot of notebooks. Don't worry, I don't write in them every day. If you want to learn more about how I could possibly have that many, just go ahead and listen to episode 37. So I am not planning to use tip-ins in each of my notebooks. I'm planning to try tip-ins in 3 different ways. The first is in my podcast planning notebook. So as I have moved through the process of figuring out how to podcast and create episodes and do show notes and post them online, I have come up with a particular process that works for me. I've got a certain way of planning, a certain way of outlining, a certain way of doing show notes and creating social media posts. I have a certain sequence of steps that I go through so that I don't forget to do one of them when it's time to share the podcast with the world. Right now, I have those steps listed in a notebook. And every time it's time to prepare for the podcast, I get out that notebook, I flip to the sticky note that says podcast at the top, I open it up, and I move through the sequence. But now I'm going to try a tip-in. I'm going to take my podcast planner, which is actually a calendar, and I am going to tip in on the front cover a piece of paper that has those steps on it, from writing my title to the show notes, to the emails, to the social media posts, to the Pinterest pins. All of the things are written there in the order that I should do them. Now, instead of going and finding that second notebook, I can just tip that in to the cover of my podcast planning agenda. And so no matter what month I'm on, I can open up that tip in and it'll stay right on the side and remind me of the steps I have to do. That is the one I am most eager to try, because even though I've been doing this for 70 something episodes, I still worry that I'm going to forget a step. And so this will be a nice, fun way to have it front and center. And I'm going to make it pretty. Right? I've got the steps listed out, but I'm going to use colorful markers to denote the order. Maybe I'll have a sticker or something on there. And I've got a really fun washi tape to keep everything secure to the notebook. So that is the first way I'm trying a tip in. The second way is that I am trying a gratitude tracker. So I love my gratitude notebook because it really does change the mindset from thinking about what's going wrong to what's going right. And it's a beautiful reminder when you flip back on past months to see those little things that you were grateful for. It just reminds you of all of those things that we tend to forget in the busyness of our days. But I don't always remember to do it. If I am honest, the notebooks that I need to write in at night, they fall by the wayside. I am a definite morning person, not a night person. And so in my gratitude notebook, I would like to try a gratitude tracker. I have found a small printable monthly tracker that I am going to tip in to the pages of my notebook. So I'll have a tracker for September, for October, for November, for December. And wherever I am in my notebook, when I start my gratitude for that month, I'm going to tape in that gratitude tracker so that I can tip it out. And every day of that month that I write, I can fill in that tracker and watch that tracker hopefully grow. Now, there are very simple trackers online that I have found, and I'm just going to add a sticker or two to dress it up for each of the months based on the seasons and the holidays. And hopefully that will help me get to my gratitude journal a little bit more regularly. And finally, the third one, the notebook that I write in the most often outside of my 5-year journal. I write in my 5-year journal every single day. One little thing I want to hold on to. But the other notebook that gets filled most quickly are my morning pages. I've done complete episodes on my morning page practice because I have found it to be so important. And I think tip-ins are really going to enhance my morning page experience. As I mentioned, I like using prompts in my morning page notebook. If left to my own devices, I will just wake up every morning and talk about, well, honestly, probably complain about what happened the day before and how I want today to be a good day. So I do tend to rely on prompts and starters to vary the kinds of things that are in my morning page notebook. So I'm envisioning a tip in with those 3 questions I tend to ask myself every morning. I can envision a tip in with additional reflective questions that I might pose at the beginning or the end of the month. I've mentioned before, Shantae Grant of the Best Today podcast has these really beautiful reflective questions to open and close a month. I can envision those in there. I also can envision printables that can spark my journaling habit. So if you've listened to episode 50 and 70, those are the 2 episodes that I talked with Christy Zimmer, this wonderful, joyful journaler. And she has these beautiful notebook printables. Now, so far, I've been using those printables in a separate binder because I wasn't sure how to integrate them with my notebook. But now I might use some of her printables and some of her prompts as the larger tip-ins that I could try, because then I could use that one printable, but apply that reflection and that thinking and that writing to any page of my notebook. So far, those are the plans: a tip-in for prompts, a tip-ins for reflective questions, a tip-in for printables, and maybe even a tip-in for just some ideas of what I could write about if I was stuck. So a lot of times things that I need to write about will pop up throughout the day when things happen. And I thought a tip-in where I could just quickly collect those ideas and then remember them when I'm actually writing the next day in the morning could be a fun thing to add. Now, my morning pages right now really only have Post-it notes or little Post-it flags kind of denoting where some sort of breakthrough happened, right? It's something really cool on the page that I want to revisit. So this will be a new thing for me, and I'm primarily going to focus on putting these tip-ins on the inner and back covers. Because so far, all of my tip-in ideas, my podcast planning, my gratitude tracker, and my prompting, those are things I want available to me on any page of my notebook. So if that's true, I want to put them on the front or back covers. So when I pull out that tip-in, it's visible no matter what page I'm on. But I do want to push myself to think more about the on the page tip-ins that might be good for me. So I think this is a good start, but I'm definitely going to keep thinking about other ideas for how this could work for me. I'm not a bullet journaler. I'm not a planner, on paper at least, where tip-ins are quite common. So it's something I'm just going to keep in mind as I'm writing and think, where might a tip-in be helpful? I also know that tip-ins are going to be fantastic for my holiday notebook. So if you haven't been around this podcast for a while, if you haven't been here listening last December, I love my yearly holiday notebook tradition. I love it. I'm going to do it again this year, and I'm going to invite you all to holiday notebook along with me. And I'm thinking some of these tip-ins could be really fun in a holiday theme. So my mind is already spinning of what those possibilities might be. But for now, I'm going to experiment with my podcast planner, my gratitude journal, and my morning pages. So what do you think? What do you think of tip-ins? Do you think it's something that you might try? You might consider? I hope so, because I've been having fun experimenting with it. And I will be honest, when you open your notebook and you see all these little secretive compartments and beautiful washi tape that you can open up, it's just plain old fun. So I would love to know what you think. I want you to send me all of your journal and notebook tip-in ideas. What are the tip-ins you already use? What are the tip-ins you're considering using based on listening to this episode? What ideas for tip-ins do you have? What kind of paper would you use? If you were to print out a writing tool tip-in, what would it be? Would you want a tracker? Would you want a prompt page? Would you want reflective questions? Do you see what I'm getting at? I've been creating my own tip-ins in Canva so that I can have them as tools, and I'd be happy to keep creating and to share them with all of you. I just need to know which tip-ins you think you might want to use. It's been a fun project and one that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody after I experiment with a little bit and iron out all the kinks. So send me all your tip-in ideas and requests. You can find me on social media at pretty much any platform, including Threads at AfinitoLit. You can head to alitlife.com and comment on the show notes. And you can also leave me a voice note on the podcast if that's something you prefer to do. Send me all the things. I'm going to be experimenting and printing and cutting and taping for a couple of weeks to come as I give this little experiment a try. So don't forget to send me your requests if you would like to try making some of these tip-ins work in your notebook too. So that's it for today's episode. I hope I got you thinking about tip-ins and the possibilities for your own notebook. And if you'd like to give journaling a try, especially a new kind of journaling, remember, Jen Begin is coming to our Get Literate Patreon community. We're having a live session next Saturday where we are junk journaling together. And there's lots of beautiful tip-ins and junk journaling that I plan on experimenting with that day. You can find out more at getliterate.co. You can sign up just for $5 a month. Every week, you get an extra bonus episode, a first chapter Friday recording, a book club, and one other live event. It's a really fun, beautiful community, and I hope you'll consider joining us. But in the meantime, go find some tip-in materials and get pasting washi tape in your notebook. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Happy writing and notebooking, everyone, and I'll see you inside the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. Plus, if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much, much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.